Ash Allen talks.
Taylor, who had introduced iMove method and Quantum Day, and owner and mentor at Get Good at Business. Taylor, welcome back, and good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We had so much fun our last time. I was like, we have to come back. We have to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll continue this episode. And based on some questions and the chats I have with some entrepreneurs, so I have listed some questions to you. First of all, let's dive into the podcast directly. First question I would like to ask, shifting from corporate to entrepreneurship, right? So this is a kind of vague question anyway. So actually what's happening, there are people who are working for the corporate and they have used to that corporate culture and the annual leaves, Saturday, Sunday leaves, and the stuff working from 8 to 5 and the timing and the break and the stuff. And suddenly they have jumping into entrepreneurship. So this point, so how you weaving from your angle of this thing? I mean, someone who is employed and who is trying his own business on his own idea. So how you feel about this kind of situation?
Well, I'm coming from a background that is precisely that. I spent 15 years in corporate marketing, operations, strategy, and leadership. And I would say one of the things that was a little bit different with my experience of it is that I was what you would consider an intrapreneur. So I wasn't aware of that term at the time, but oftentimes I would join a company and they would just toss me the keys to an idea or to a department that was brand spanking new and then say, make it happen and run with it. And so in my experience, I would lead teams, I would lead departments, I would lead projects, efforts, initiatives that I was in full control over, and I was treating it like I was an entrepreneur. And so that really for my experience on that, really set me apart because I was already treating things with full ownership. And one of the reasons, like there's the outside reason, which is I left corporate world. I've been a C-suite executive. My last job, I was an executive for an organization out of Las Vegas. And I always, like the front facing of this is that I actually had clients already who were seeking more from me. And so it was like, this is a good fit. I'm ready to go. But also I found that I was really frustrated with how things were being ran from the company side because I was treating it like I was an entrepreneur. So I was like, this is mine. I'm making these decisions. I'm moving it forward. And then it would be like, oh, but this in corporate would come in. And I was like, no, it's mine, right? Like I'm
Yeah,
growing this from the ground up.
yeah.
So that was a little bit of like the segmentation of my own journey. But when you're looking at moving from corporate to entrepreneurship, I think even if you are in an intrapreneur space, there's still things that come into play that as an entrepreneur, you are not as well equipped for as you need to be when you first start out. So it's like I've worked with clients like Google, Stanford University, Johnson & Johnson, and numerous, and I did it in marketing, built the operations of my team. I did the strategies, all these things, but I didn't do sales. There was a corporate sales team. Right.
Yeah,
And
cool.
I was aware of my department's finances and we would track them and make decisions based off of that, again, in that operations mindset, but I wasn't the finance team. Right.
Mhm.
And I didn't have visibility to all the things. I had it to my departments or my areas. And so when you move into entrepreneurship, there's this level of suddenly you're wearing not just the hats you're good at, but all of the hats. Right. And you
Cool.
can immediately start to hire people out. But if you don't have money already coming in, right, you've got to know and get your business to the point where it is profitable before you start just hiring things out. And we'll talk about hiring team members and things like that later on. But ultimately, it's that shift from I'm in a position where I get to really thrive, hopefully, in my zone of genius, to I'm now in a position where my livelihood depends on me living not only in my zone of genius, but learning and applying all these other areas that were previously taken care of for me as someone working in corporate. And so if you're an entrepreneur that is either making that transition, has made that transition, or you're not an entrepreneur yet, but you're thinking of making that transition, one of the best things of advice, one of the best pieces of advice and things that I can recommend is to really pay attention to like what all you will actually need to do and develop those skills, whether it's while you're an entrepreneur on the fly, right? A little bit of a fire under your seat, or before you make the full leap. Because if you can get good at putting all those pieces together, and I'm all about get good at business, and that's business in its entirety, right? Get good at the business elements of it so you can get back into the heart of why you got into business in the first place. And if you're moving from corporate to entrepreneurship, being very cognizant of that, aware of that, I think is huge. And setting yourself up for that longer term success as an entrepreneur.
Mhm. And Tyler, the approach of high return, but not trying to take high risk. So I can compare two companies here. So for an example, we know in share market, Nvidia, the chip making company, which is booming up and the price is skyrocket. So I have seen an article yesterday, I think. So it's mentioning if someone invested $5,000 before 24 years, I mean in 2000s, now his money earning is 2.4 millions on that stock. So it's a kind of Warren Buffett approach. So just investing the money by randomly and, sitting and, tracking the stuff and finally end up in a profit way. So, and another company, SpaceX, the Elon Musk, the founder, right, which is a highly risk company. No one will ever think about SpaceX because, the rocket stuff and, finally launching the payload of 55 tons and the satellites and, the stuff. If there's a 0.01% chance of success of rocket company. So high risk oriented entrepreneur and just investing the money in some kind of stock and watching whether it's hitting the market or not. So there's low risk and he's trying for a high return, and high risk and trying for high return. So what do you think about these two type of entrepreneurs or investors? How you feel about this kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it very much is a parallel, continuing the conversation about going from corporate to entrepreneurship, right? It's very much a parallel to that, where in a corporate world, you are investing your time and your effort and your energy, and you're making a consistent income, and it's really low risk. And if you have ownership or stocks in the company, you might have some high returns, but ultimately it's pretty stable, right? You might get some boosts occasionally, but it's fairly stable and low risk. When you move into entrepreneurship, you are taking away the safety net. And so you're looking at that high risk with a very potentially good high return. And so when we look at entrepreneurs that are, I'm going to say, risk adverse, they tend to have a much more slow, steady, stable model that may eventually pay off for them in the end. And I think that's essentially the first example that you'd mentioned from an entrepreneurship type of level. Then you have like the Elon Musk, where it's like high risk, high return. And those are the types of individuals that it's two things. One, in the back of your mind, like, well, I can always go back to corporate if this fails. Or two, which is more likely, which is I've burnt the bridges, I've burnt the boats, I have to make it work on this island. And so you're really like, everything is going to work in this, and I'm putting a lot of high risk in, but it's going to have a really, really high return. And they're both, in my mind, just different ways to look at entrepreneurial adventures, and the different mindsets around that. My personal take as an individual is that if you have gone out in business, even in that slow go type of setting, it's still a high risk, no matter how safe you want to try and make it. And nothing is ever a guaranteed and sure thing. So you really have to put in the work to build the stability within your business, whether it's in the high risk format or the low risk format. I personally, it's funny enough, I tend to be a low risk type of person. And so moving out into entrepreneurial adventures has been a fascinating turn for me, because it really is like, okay, let's jump in, let's build this. And what feels risky actually isn't, because I'm burning the boats, I've burnt the bridges, here we are, like it's going to work because I will it into existence, because I am an entrepreneur and I'm going to make it happen. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, and this is a really high risk adventure, but you only live once. And so, yeah, I think it's a really interesting like tie to, especially people who are thinking of leaving corporate. like taking a look at, okay, am I a high risk individual? And am I willing to do the mindset and the belief and the emotional regulation work to be able to take those actions confidently and to, again, burn those boats with confidence that you can make it work?
Mhm. Digital nomads and investors, are these both categories fall in entrepreneurship, or it's a different path of way?
Well, digital nomads, I can see them definitely as entrepreneurs because they tend to be more in a freelance type of category, whether it's for themselves or working for other people as contractors, but they are responsible for getting their own clientele, for bringing in their money and for supporting their lifestyle. Just like any other entrepreneur, digital nomad or not, we're all responsible for supporting our lifestyles and building our life. So I think a digital nomad is definitely within the entrepreneurial space. An investor may or may not be, right? If you're someone who has built your investment funds, right? If you've built your wealth through building and growing your business or other businesses, then yeah, I consider you a business owner. If it was an inheritance of some kind, or you received a large payout, a large sum of money for something that may have happened. I actually know an individual who his house slid off the side of the mountain. And so he got millions of dollars from the home builders. And so that's someone who's now investing money, but is not a business owner, right? And so I would look at investors and really see where they're coming from and their experience and their background before saying that they're entrepreneurs. Because the other piece of that is putting money in. You can be a silent investor, you can be on the board of directors, or you can be actually working in the company, depending on what that investment negotiation and contract looks like. And so for investors to just put money in and say, I trust you to make it happen, or even investors to be on the board of directors, they're very, very light touch, if any touch at all. And so you wouldn't call them responsible for getting the clients, for marketing the business, for supporting the lifestyle, for building the teams, or any of those things that come with the entrepreneurial journey. So I think for investors, it depends. Do they have a business? Then yeah, they're an entrepreneur and a business owner. But just because you're investing money doesn't make you qualified to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm. Uh, Innovation is a very important part in 2024, actually. So we have classical business models, and they think at one point that if they introduce AI technologies to their business, it's an innovation business. So what do you think about this thought? It's actually happening in market. So people rely on AI and ChatGPT, this Bard, and the whatever the things available in internet. They have tried to use and trying to find some solution for the problems inside the business. But sometimes yes, sometimes no. But they feel themselves, okay, we are using AI in some way. So we are innovation and we are innovative business. So what do you think and your thoughts on it?
I think it's interesting because there's, of course, like even traditional business models have to have innovation to survive. Uh, Even on the weirdest level, like for example, yesterday I saw Tiffany's released a custom made or like one of one Pikachu necklace. And I was like, they have been in business for 187 years. And they're like, and we're just going to create this one-off Pikachu necklace. And I was like,
Yeah,
that feels off-brand.
it's a very long
But
way.
yeah, but they're trying to innovate. They are trying to build, and they're, and even then they went from doing Tiffany lamps to jewelry, and so it's always an evolution. So even what you'd consider a traditional business model has to continue to innovate to stay relevant, to stay in the market, and to stay up on being a business that people will do business with. If somebody came to me yesterday and said, yeah, send me a fax, let's get that contract, I'd be like, I'm not sending you a fax, right? Like you need to innovate your processes. You need to innovate your tools, your systems, all of those things. On the other side of that though, however, I do think that way too many businesses are leaning onto AI without knowing the full ramifications of that. And AI and automation is not a replacement for your marketing and your customer support. They are a support and a complement to your marketing and customer support. And if you start to use it to replace, you're going to start to see a drop in clients because the AI is not going to connect to them on the level that it should and be able to market your business in the way that it should. It's the customer service and support, right? You're going to have people screaming into their phone, yelling customer service, because they want to talk to a real human being, right? You're going to start to see a diminished return on the investment in the AI innovation to the level I'm seeing so many people do it, which is it's their entire business model. Because eventually, the truth of it is business is between people and people. And so you've got to have some human element to it. And so I think that in the name of innovation, they are excellent tools to complement supporting you in your business and across so many areas, right? It can be operations, it can be in marketing, it can be in sales, it can be in customer support, it can be in finance, it can be a resource and a tool in many different ways to help your business. But if you use it as, okay, my whole marketing is taken care of by AI, or my whole customer support is now taken care of by my innovation, you're going to start to wonder why you're not bringing any new clients and why you're not retaining clients. And I would take a hard look at the AI scope of that. And you mentioned specifically 2024. I believe 2024 is the year of the personal brand because, especially for entrepreneurs, no matter your industry, because people want to see the face behind the business. They want to know the person who is in charge and running it. And they are going to give it 3 months, my prediction. I think in 3 months or less that people of the world are going to be really sick of the robot piece and want more of that human interaction and connection. And that's where the personal brand can come in. And it's even little things like putting a typo in a social post or in an email. That's a human natural thing that proves to people it's not AI. Now, I think AI will get to a point where it will start to account for that type of stuff. And that makes it even more important to have those more person-to-person connections because AI is rapidly coming up. I think you need to be aware of it and know how to utilize it as a tool, but definitely do not use it as a replacement of any component of your business.
Mm-hmm. And this is a real question from an entrepreneur he sent me. So what he's asking is that how to find his ideal customer because he was so confused with the social media platform. And he's also doing podcast, right? So he's saying that as if I started to implement some new things and new products in social media, there are 10 to 15 people following me behind and asking we will promote your product and we get a small commission for it and the things are happening like that, but at the end he have no idea is these customers or the followers are really organic or it's any bot or someone made one. Or so what do you think about this kind of situation? So someone coming into the social media with a new product and he's messed up with the social media. He cannot find the right path, where to go, who is my ideal customer, how is the way. There are a lot of people are following me, but actually, is it my ideal customers or not? Is it a bot? Is it a organic customer? How to tackle this kind of problem?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's really interesting is that as entrepreneurs, we are told to niche down consistently, niche down, figure out your ideal client, niche it down, niche it down. And depending on your industry and when you're starting and things like that and where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, I actually think that can be poor advice. And the reason why is when you're first starting out, you are trying to figure out so many different pieces that, yes, you should identify who you ideally would like to work with, but understand that is going to shift and evolve and change. So if you're 6 months into being an entrepreneur, you've probably changed your ideal client 3 to 4 times. If you're 3 years into being an entrepreneur, you've probably changed your ideal client 10 times, right? Because you're continuing to find how you fit into the business and into the market and into the industry and into those clients' lives. And they're cycling kind of back to you to show, and now you're making those maneuvers and adjustments. So I think that's number one is like, depending on where you're at in your business, it's important to identify the ideal client, but don't get so caught up in the long term of it, the longevity of it, because it's a very high likelihood it's going to change as your programs, your offerings, your products, and your business and you shift and change as well. So that's number one. Number two is if you don't like social media for whatever reason, as an entrepreneur, your time is valuable. So there are a million ways to make $1 million. We are told in the online world, oh, you got to post on social media. You got to post on social media. You've got to post on social media. I'm a big fan of social media, but I have clients who are like, I hate it. It feels disingenuous. I don't know who's actually following me. I don't know what to say. I just don't like the feeling of the pressure and stress of having to post all day. And if I don't post, then I'm inconsistent and the algorithms. And I mean, they just hate it. And it's like, totally, there's a million ways to make $1 million. So if you are not a fan of social, go out and network, make one-on-one connections, do events, attending, speaking, all of those types of things where your ideal client is, where that audience who you want to work with is, and spend time there, have conversations, again, that one-on-one connections there, so that you can still make money in your business and don't even worry about the social media part. Now, you can maintain the status of your social media, but I'm saying, like, don't put so much pressure and stress on it to make it perfect, to make it work for your business, because there could be a million other ways that are better aligned for you to be successful with your organization, with your company. Then the third part of that is if it's interesting because bots don't follow accounts just for following accounts. So if he's worked with affiliate programs and things like that, those should be for selling the offer, not for getting followers. And so you really want to be cognizant of the types of partnerships and collaborations you're doing. If you're spending money for followers, guaranteed they're going to be bots. So probably don't do that. And if you have a huge influx, then maybe somebody pranked you and bought followers on your behalf, at which point the only thing I can say is going through and deleting any of them that don't have a real profile picture to start, any of them that don't have any content on their profiles, right? Starting to move in that direction, which can be manual, but you can hire somebody for that as well, to really clean up that following piece, specifically on like Instagram or TikTok. So it was a fairly broad question. So I hope that kind of helped encompass across the multiple areas of it. But ultimately, like, if social media is not a good fit for you, don't feel like there's so much pressure that that's the only way to go about it. Use it to maintain, because people will look on your socials to see that you're legit and things like that. But you don't have to make sales. You don't have to do your full nurturing pieces through that. Email works, networking works, speaking at events, podcasting works. There's so many different ways that you can promote and articulate for your business and make those connections with those ideal clients. And then one last thing I'm going to say on that is, in identifying your ideal client, you can segment it a million ways. And I've done that corporate and for my business and gone super detailed and deep dive. But ultimately, at the highest level, your client is 3 things. Very highest level here. 1, they have a problem that you help solve. Your product, your offerings, whatever, help solve. So you're niching down on the problem, not the people. Okay, because it could be broad. If you're HVAC, then a lot of people have HVAC. You're not targeting just on one person. So do they have the problem that you can solve? Can they afford to work with you? And do you want to work with them? Highest level of identifying your ideal client, they meet those 3 things. And you can, again, go into demographics, psychographics, inspiration, aspiration, pain points, all of those things. I've built those out for marketing initiatives and efforts my whole career. Ultimately, especially when you're first starting out, they need to meet those 3 criteria, because then they can afford to work with you. They're actually aligned to what you're offering in your solution, so they want to buy from you. And most importantly, you want to work with them. So if there's people out there that you're like, look, I'm in America, right? And we have a very tense political climate. So I know my ideal client is not going to.
November is reaching.
Yeah. I know my ideal client is not someone who's going to be talking about the political climate with me, because I don't care. It's not relevant to me. I mean, it is, I live here, but that's not the conversations I want to have. So my ideal client is somebody I want to work with. And part of that is that they're not going to bring in a political agenda to every time we talk. So you can look at it from that higher level there, and then start to see and segment based on the growth of your business.
Based on same question, another question was there, that a CEO of a company, right? He's still in that position. So he's launched a small product, and he is bit, exposed to social media is, he's little backwards. So, and actually, when I'm saying in another terms, he's a little afraid to come and, show his product and introduce his product because he's in a big top position. So, at this kind of awkward moment, so how to tackle a product launch and how to come to social media and the exposure things, how it will happen?
Well, let's think about like Elon Musk, right?
Hmm.
Or Apple or any of those where they host these large summits or they have these big events to launch their products. And they're on stage talking about it, but then they also bring in the people who help support and may actually know about the product
Yeah.
and the growth of it, right? So I would use that as an example of like, if you're that entrepreneur, if you're that CEO and you have a team to support and you're talking about these things, then utilize that because they are the experts in what you've built and how it helps support the clientele, the customer. If you're a solopreneur, then obviously you've got to promote your own product and leaning into the benefits of that versus the features. So I think of Volvo, for example, right? For years, they've been known for safety. Like they are the car for safety. And they say that and they promote that and they tell stories around safety, which is the benefit. They don't tell you, oh, it has ABS anti-lock brakes and we have the best tires and we have this system and this system. They tell you that we are safety and then they share stories that support that. So when you're looking at what that takes for you as a CEO to be selling and promoting and launching a new product, it's looking at the benefits and what that product does for your clientele, your customers, so that they can see how it can fit in their lives. Did that help answer?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And the AI, when we're talking about, and the startup. So, a startup, how they should follow any AI regulations, or do they need to study regarding this AI or the future of AI? So, how to tackle the AI with startups? Because if it's a grown company and if it's a matured company, so then fine, they can invest and they can recycle their customer oriented things and all inside the company, and they can change the system. But the startups are not much into finance, and they are much into free sources and open sources actually. And so how they will align with AI technologies?
Yeah, so I think that AI is really fascinating because, especially in a startup space, you need to be very cognizant of where you're spending your money and what tools and resources you're using. However, it's really interesting when, what was this, about 8 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, ChatGPT really hit the scene hard here in America. And I was working with a startup at the time as a consultant, and we were actually building out their business plan. And that business plan from a startup perspective is to help get investors and to help the direction and the vision and the growth of the company and help us decide what tools and things to use. And at the time that ChatGPT had come out, we had just finished that business plan and it had taken us 6 months to fully build with all of our financials, with all the copy, with all these pieces. And it's fascinating because since then, I have partnered with 3 other startup companies, and we've used AI to help build their business plan. And of course, it's all in the prompts and the things like that. But we've used AI to help build their business plan. And what took me 6 months of manual work in a startup space, I'm able to execute on in a week or less using automation and AI. So it really, but again, it's still that human personal touch. You can't be like, hey, write me a business plan. You can, but that's not really your business. It's ChatGPT's business at that point. You've got to ask the right prompts and use it to take the information that you have and compile it much faster, much more eloquently, much more with an intent than you would if you just threw it all together or if you just had ChatGPT or AI create it. So from a startup space, you really want to look at time to market and time and money and efforts. And so it's like, I think it's worth the money to utilize AI in a startup space because it will save you so much time and energy and move your business so much faster, as we see with the business plan creation example. but also being very cognizant of like, how is this tool going to be used in my business to support it and complement it and help it, not I should just have it because it's AI and it's all the rage. So as a startup, you want to be very cognizant of every tool that you use, any money that you are investing back into the company and the organization, which in startup world is all of it, right? That you're very cognizant and very aware of how you will utilize that AI tool and how it will support the growth of the company.
Mm-hmm. And Taylor, when it's come to customer base, even a bigger company or a small, medium scale company, so customers are the major thing where the main cash inflow is coming. So finding a new customers are fine. So, but retaining the existing customer is a challenging task for the companies, even for the senior level management or a mid-level management. So retaining the customers, how the system will work or how to tackle this problem. Because let's say if we done a transaction with the customer, with that people think, okay, it's done with the company. But actually how to bring the same customer back again to the company. So it's a retaining the same customer again and again. So how the things will work in this criteria?
So I think that really depends on the company and the product and or service. I love the example of you can sell lamps, but it's better to sell light bulbs.
Mhm.
Right? Because you
True.
buy a lamp, it's your lamp once, and I bought it and I'm done, buy company, but I will go back for light bulbs.
Yeah.
And that's not saying make cheap products that break or that go out, but my point is that you want to find a way to bring people in reoccurring, that they need your service more regularly. And I don't even deal with HVAC companies, but for some reason that keeps on coming up, right? If you're an HVAC company, then having regular maintenance and services and things built in to bring them back, a subscription model after the installation or after the fix is a great way to bring people back in and retain those customers, as well as be able to set up things like loyalty programs and build strong advocacy programs so that they are now referring you as well. So I'd really take a look at what is your product, what is your offering, and is there a next step that could bring people back in, like we create lamps, we're going to sell light bulbs so that they continue to come to us. We have multiple touch points, and maybe it's a subscription. Hey, the average light bulb lasts a year. At the 1 year mark, they pay this amount, and we send them a lamp cleaning kit and 3 new light bulbs or whatever it is. But find a way to continue to solve the next level problems or the next level needs of those customers in that same space so that you can have them continue to come back. But also subscription models or reoccurring revenue models can really fully depend on the product and the industry that you're in, but there's always a way to find them to bring them back. And then once you have them back, start looking at really high levels of intent around your customer retention, specifically like loyalty and advocacy types of programs and initiatives.
Mm-hmm. And Taylor, the business is not a one-man show. It's not a one-man army. It's a group of people. So choosing the right group of people with the right intention, right mission, vision, and the targets is not an easy task. So actually, how to choose the right team members and how to motivate them throughout the business process, like 5 years, 10 years, and retaining them with us. So it's like making them as a company partners or salary stuff, or how to motivate them and retain with them with the talented people. Because in some companies, employee turnover ratio is very high. People come and go, come and go. So that kind of companies, it take a lot of time to grow up. So how to retain people and how to find the right team and the talented people to retain with us?
I think the very first thing is expectations, right? You have to set clear expectations about what the role is versus what you have the vision of it being, right? Because
True.
people come in and they feel like it's a bait and switch. And so you've got to like, yeah, there's the vision of where we want to go, but you've got to find the right people that are like, I can do the job now and then I can grow with it, or I can choose to stay with it and you bring somebody else to help grow with it. But first and foremost is laying out those clear expectations. And that starts with actually really good detailed job descriptions and expectations of what we want this person to do, which is then followed by very clear training and onboarding processes, and then continued follow-up and an emphasis on culture and leadership. People don't leave the job, they leave the leaders. So you want to make sure that your leaders are set up for success and that are really honed in on the culture and setting a team environment where we're focused on growth, but the expectations are very, very clear, so that you brought in the right person from the beginning because they were very clear on what the role was, what's expected of them, what high performance looks like, what winning looks like, and where the company is going. So in a very short, obviously that's a massive question depending on where you're at in your business journey, where you're at in your team journey, all of those pieces. I mean, I've led a 30-person international team, very different, but ultimately the expectations is the first and foremost part that you need to lay the foundation and the groundwork with to be able to find those right people and find them for the long term to fit the role that you need them in.
That's a very good answer for that, actually. And yeah,